Welcome to Ask the Expert, a daily series from 8:30 to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. Ask any questions in the comments or use the hashtag QBATE on Twitter. If you need any more advice, please do join the official Intuit Quickbooks SME community group on Facebook, where there are accountants and business experts on hand 24/7. QuickBooks also have a dedicated COVID-19 information site. Just go to the QuickBooks website, scroll down a little bit, and click on the big Learn More button under the header Support for You and Your Business During COVID-19. So a little bit about myself. My name is Eriona. I am the Managing Director of Majors Accounts. I'm a qualified Chartered Certified Accountant, and a bit of background of my studies. So I have a Master's in Accounting and Finance. I have a Master's in Law in International Banking and Finance. And I've recently completed a postgraduate diploma at the University of Oxford in Strategic Finance. I think it's safe to say I'm done now with studies. I'm also a member of the QuickBooks Accountants Council and a member of ACCA's UK Practitioner Network and ACCA's SME Global Forum Network. I've been working in practice now for 13 years alongside my studies, which has been great in ensuring that I really enhance my studies backed with the experience from small practice, where you really get to see everything, how business works, how they function, their pain points, investigating ways of finding solutions, or helping them grow, or maybe becoming more profitable. So Majors Accounts, who are we? We are a small accountancy practice based in Southeast London. We are currently providing support to the SME businesses in the SME space, so whether they're owner-managed, limited companies or self-employed businesses in a wide range of industries, to name a few: construction, hospitality, so pubs, bars, restaurants, financial services, IT, hairdressers, barbers, nurseries, the list goes on. So since becoming Managing Director of Majors Accounts, I have spearheaded and implemented a digitalisation strategy with the aim to become a paperless office. We are now nearly there. So I'm proud to say we're also a QuickBooks only online practice. So we've hopefully become somewhat experts in this space. So in our practice now, everything can be done online using an array of really amazing technology and apps, which all feed into QuickBooks Online to create an elevated experience for our team as they're using the cutting edge technology in our industry, but also ensuring that we're ahead of the game for our clients as well, making sure that they get the best out of our service. Clients now no longer need to come to our office if they don't want to. So there's a convenience there and time saving, which also allows for our national reach and soon to be global reach. So we've got clients from the Isle of Wight all the way up to Ireland. The idea is to bring the client-accountant relationship closer. So we are a family-run practice, and treating our clients and our team like family is one of our core values, which really helps to build an excellent rapport, we believe, and gives a more personalised service, coupled with expertise built up from years of experience. We believe, I think there's a common misconception with adopting technology. We believe that it actually brings us closer to our clients. It gives us more time to speak to them, to really discuss their business and to find ways of how we can help. And the idea is that we will, in time, become the virtual finance director for our clients. Now, our efforts haven't gone unnoticed. Majors Accounts have been nominated for Independent Firm of the Year Greater London by the British Accountancy Awards for the last 2 years in a row. We featured in the Parliamentary Review in 2017 in the accounting and financial services sector, showcasing best practice in our industry. And I myself have been nominated for 3 awards by the Women in Accounting and Finance 2020, which will take place later this year, hopefully. I guess it's to be seen. So coronavirus, it's at the forefront of everybody's mind at the moment, for a number of reasons. Some could be health, unfortunately, and also businesses which are having difficulties in operating in these really distressful times. They've been affected massively. Many have had to close, they're not generating any income, and no one really knows what's happening at the moment. I mean, many countries have started to ease restrictions. However, how long will this last? Will there be a second wave? So not many businesses have really planned effectively for this. I'm not sure how you can plan for a global pandemic, but many don't have enough or adequate cash reserves in order to kind of keep going. And many don't know if they're going to have a business to go back to once we're allowed out again and we go back to some sort of normality. The UK economy has been hit massively. This morning, the Office for National Statistics announced that the economy has shrunk by 20.4%, which is higher than any economist was expecting, which is super worrying. And businesses in this time have had to think of ways to pivot in order to survive. Some have done this really well and really capitalized on this situation, whereas some are not really sure how they can do so. So there have been government reliefs introduced to obviously relieve some of the stress and from these businesses, and there have been a few updates recently. So one of the main ones was the Furlough scheme. It was announced that from the 10th of June. So the 10th of June was the last date that an employer could officially furlough an employee. There was a little bit of misconception whether this meant that by the 10th everyone that wanted to be claimed for had to be claimed for. It wasn't. It's just that the 10th of June was the last time that an employer could tell their employee, from today, listen, I can't afford to pay you at the moment, so I'm going to have to furlough you. And obviously, they're not going to be able to claim for those employees until the 30th of June, because they have to have their 3 weeks of being furloughed before they can claim. Also, in the furlough applications, I don't know if many people have noticed, but when you're going to do it the second time round, there is an extra step which says, are you making an adjustment to this claim because you've overclaimed in the last period? So that is now for those that kind of weren't sure if they claimed correctly, or maybe they found mistakes in their calculation. This is the opportunity now to make those changes and deduct it from the current claim. And as far as we know, there won't be any comebacks from that, because you are actively saying, yep, I've noticed this is incorrect, I'm correcting it now, all should be fine. But if you have found mistakes and you haven't corrected it, HMRC have mentioned that depending on the scale of the mistakes and whether they were intentional or not, they could pursue criminal charges, which you don't really want. So if you're unsure, either contact your accountant or speak to HMRC directly, and they will be able to help you out. If there are people that have overclaimed and the next claim will still not be enough to underclaim by, then there isn't currently a way of repaying back to HMRC. But if you've called them and let them know, at least you're in there, you've informed them, so you're hopefully in their good books. So from the 1st of July, there will be no new furloughed employees, and from July the government will continue to pay 80% of wages, but employees can start to return their staff part-time or on any shift patterns. Now, there will be difficulties in getting staff back to work, because a lot have been used to sitting at home and getting paid 80% of the salary, which will impact businesses massively, I think. But also, you may be pressured into bringing your staff back to work, but maybe you don't have enough cash reserves to be able to subsidise that extra payment. So you will really need to be looking at employee contracts and staffing levels. How many staff do you think that you will need, considering the trading levels that you're going to be having when you start going back to work? Now, from August, employers are expected to contribute by paying employers' NIC and pensions, And from September, the government will be paying 70% of wages, so they're going to be capped, which will be reduced to 60% in October. Please be aware, though, keep your calculations for up to 6 years, because there could be HMRC investigations on these current claims. Now, I'm going to have to start taking questions. We have a question from Brianna from Twitter who says, good morning, how does the new maximum number of claims work with the updated furlough scheme? So if you say in a previous claim, if you have claimed for 10 employees, from the 1st of July, you will no longer be able to claim for, say, 11 or 12. So as I mentioned, on the 10th of June was the last date that you could put any new employees into the scheme. So on the 1st of July, you would have had those extra people. So from that date, you can claim only those extras that have been furloughed from the 10th of June. But other than that, you can't claim anymore, unfortunately. Dahlia from Facebook Messenger says, hi Eriona, the government has announced we can open from the 15th of June, but we don't have enough work for everyone. We want to flexibly furlough staff from July, but what can we do in the meantime? So I guess this is what I was discussing earlier. It's really having to look at what kind of trading levels you think you're going to have, and possibly working out rotas with your staff because those that are going to be returning to work for the hours that they are going to be working, you're going to need to be paying for them. But what you could do is, have a few hours for each person, so you've given everybody that opportunity to work. Those who you can't afford to, keep them on the furlough scheme, but there will be that flexibility to bring them back part-time and really work that rota, as long as they've been furloughed previously. If they've been furloughed previously, you have that flexibility to work around who you really need and how many staff you need. Obviously, we've got until October that the furlough scheme is running until, but it could be an issue in the future, possibly, depending on how quickly you're able to recover. You may have to have a reduced team, so you'll be needing to look at your employee contracts for possible redundancies, but if you are able to avoid them as much as possible, great, by working around this way. But if not, unfortunately, there could be inevitable redundancies in the long term. We have a question from Cheryl from Facebook who says, I own a dress agency selling new and pre-loved clothes on behalf of customers. Would QuickBooks work for my business? So I love QuickBooks, I have to say. As I mentioned, we are a QuickBooks only practice, so we use QuickBooks for everything, basically, for all of our clients. And in my opinion, so far, with the industries and businesses that we have had, there is always a way of making QuickBooks work for you, and I don't see why that would be an issue with you as well, because you've got the ability there with the stock control, and there's definitely a way to work around that. So I would definitely recommend it. I have a question from Aaron from Facebook. Hi, Aaron. Hi, Eriona. Great to see you back on Ask the Expert. We are also aiming for a fully paperless office. We are at over 90%, but still struggling with certain clients like farming. Any tips for historically paper-heavy clients? Wow. Okay, so this is definitely an issue that we have been facing. We are almost there. We're on the 99%, and of course we do have a handful of clients left now that we're having the same kind of issue with. And considering 2,000 clients, I guess a handful is not so bad. But we believe that the only way to really get them on board is going to be a lot of conversations until we really get them to understand how much easier this will be for them. As an example, I had one client who was adamant against absolutely everything that we are doing. And when I showed him, so I got him on the different apps, and he started working on them for a couple of months. He came back to us and said, no, I'm pretty sure this is not working. I don't see anything that I've sent to you guys, but obviously they all get archived because we've already dealt with them and sent them to QuickBooks or wherever they need to go. So when we showed him, actually, no, what you've done so far, we've got everything. So it's working perfectly, and just making him understand, the minute he saw how everything was working, he was 100% on board. He was like, okay, so can you sign me up for all my other businesses? Because he's got a few businesses with us. So it's really showing everyone, showing business owners how this is going to help them, because just telling them won't really make a difference. But is it a long process? Absolutely. It needs many conversations, one-on-one, until you really get them to understand. If they don't want to use this way of working, then unfortunately you need to kind of reevaluate, are they the type of client that you really want to have moving forward? What value are you giving to them, and how much value are they getting from you, and vice versa? So it may be better for the long term for them to find another accountant, which is not something that you can say easily, but it would be a lot better for both parties if the value is not being obtained as it should be. I hope that helped. We have a question from Carolo from Twitter, who says, hello Eriona, now businesses are completing their risk assessments. Are there any key learnings you can share that you've picked up from your clients? So my clients they've started to open up obviously a while ago, and they've tried and tested a number of different things. As an example, a business such as a car wash, when they first opened up, they had their gloves, face masks, and obviously everyone was keeping their distance, but they were washing cars inside and out. Now obviously there's a lot more contact, and they had the authorities actually turn up and say this isn't good enough, so they had to reevaluate, and they changed from inside and out to just outside. And when they collect their money from the clients, they don't collect it from the passenger side, but they go to they don't collect it from the driver's side, they go over to the passenger side and collect it that way, so there is more of a distance. I think this will be a learning curve for so many people, because we've never had to do something like this before, so there will be a lot of tried and tested techniques. You may have done a risk assessment and you've actually been so prudent that it's not going to work in your business, you're not going to be able to function, or maybe you haven't been prudent enough and you're going to need to put more steps in place. But I think the idea is you need to have that mentality to ensure that you need to be flexible. You may need to change and adapt as rules are relaxed or not. We'll see how that goes, but definitely have that open mind to make changes, and possibilities for changes where if needed. So we have a question from Ray from Twitter, who says, have you seen clients' employees returning to work after being placed on furlough? Was it a straightforward process? So this is a huge issue and worry for so many businesses. Their employees have been sitting at home, obviously out of no choice of their own, but they have been paid 80% of their salary and they're doing nothing and they're getting comfortable, you could say. This is not the issue for everybody. Some people can't wait to get back to work because they're just not used to doing nothing. But there are going to be many that are going to find the transition to come back to work extremely difficult. It could be the hours, the constant pressure, because at the moment they haven't had any pressure whatsoever. So it has been a lot of discussions with employees, and a lot of businesses that we act for have actually been keeping in regular contact with their employees, just to see how they're doing, if they've got any kind of plans that they could implement for the future, or discussing how they're going to operate once they reopen. So that's a way of really keeping the fact at the forefront of their mind that they will be returning to work at some point, and to be prepared, so not to lose all contact completely. because that transition will be difficult. But that's one of the ways. Another, I mean, some clients have really, been also providing training on different aspects. So some businesses that have pivoted, they have had to provide training on their new ways of working. And under the furlough scheme, you are able to train your staff as long as the hours that they are training for does not go above what they would be paid for national minimum wage. But they have been doing online courses and things like that to really keep them up to speed. But I think the main thing is speaking to them and discussing maybe a transitional return to work, not a straight forward, you've been doing nothing, the next day you're doing so much work. So maybe a few hours at a time for a week or 2 weeks until they can really get settled back into work again. So we have a question from Nora from Twitter who says, I'm just 1 year into working as an accountant and love it. It's great news. Do you have any advice on how to be a successful accountant and what to think about? Okay, so this topic I absolutely love. So I started working at 13, which is through a choice or not of my own. But one thing so I worked with my father. It's a family-run practice. One thing that he instilled in me, which I try to pass on to everybody, whether they like my advice or not, is when you're starting up, you need all the training that you can get, and you need to be able to absorb as much training as possible and be open to it. So if someone asks you, can you do something, and you don't know how to do it, say yes. They will train you. They're not going to expect you to just go ahead and do it. But even if that was the case, we have the internet nowadays. There is always a way of finding out how to do something. Once you've researched it as much as you can and you have an idea of how it should be done, go back to them and say, right, I think I need to do X, Y, Z. Is this correct? So you can reassure what you're doing is correct. But otherwise, most of the time, you will be getting the training. So say yes to absolutely everything. Knowledge is not a bad thing. And by having this mentality, in a couple of years, you will realize, you will not even realize how varied your skill set is. You won't realize how much you actually know. So I personally, this is how I have been working my whole career. This is how I expect everyone who works with me to work. Have that open mind, because you're going to come across something that you've never done before, and you're going to have to learn how to do it. I mean, I've been working in practice and for a while now, and there is a new thing to be learned every single day. So you're never going to know everything, but if you have this way of working, you will be so much more successful for it, because nothing essentially can stand in your way. But yeah, that's my advice. I hope that's helped you. We have a question from Sierra from Facebook who says, hi Eriona, I know you mentioned about small businesses pivoting well. Do you know any examples of what they did? Yeah, so obviously one of the main ones has been restaurants who never did takeaway. They went from having a super busy restaurant, absolutely no one inside, wages to pay, rent to pay, business rates. Obviously there were grants available to help ease some of these, but they had to quickly think on their feet and start providing takeaway to their customers. Pick up only initially, because obviously having somebody to deliver is an extra expense, which they didn't know if they could afford at the time. But seeing as everyone sitting at home was missing takeaways and restaurant food and things like that, everyone was more than willing to come and collect the food. But in that time, I mean, we've had some clients that are generating almost the same kind of level of income, if not more, but reduced staffing levels, because now they no longer need all of the waiters and waitresses to be able to send the food out to clients and provide an extra special service. So if anything, technically they've become more profitable in this period, and this is something that they're thinking now for the future, that they could be providing this service more readily, because they thought that they could never do so, and the food is still in great quality and somewhat healthier than, say, a fast food chain, and for not, it's not too expensive either. Another one is a business who sells children's clothes. They are high-end children's clothes, but obviously a lot of people were conserving their cash because they didn't know how much longer this was going to be. So they weren't having as many sales, but they started making face masks for children and for adults as well, I believe. So, and they have been selling quite a lot as well. So there's another way of, you see where the demand is, and you need to kind of pivot and change to provide something else. This is something they would have never done previously, but needs must. So they're great examples, to be honest, of businesses that have managed to pivot and are still at least covering their costs, if nothing else. We have one last question, unfortunately, from Adeline from Twitter, who says, I'm hoping that you can help. It's in reference to employment law. Can furloughed staff cover the hours of the furloughed staff? I'm running a shop and I'm not 100% sure of all the rules to follow. So I'm not sure exactly what you mean here. Can furloughed staff cover for the hours of furloughed staff? So I would say, in terms of employment law, those staff that have been furloughed, they're the ones that have to come back. I've had a few questions on, can I keep my staff that are furloughed at the moment furloughed and have some new staff? You can't do that. Once you start getting new staff, then everybody you won't be eligible technically for the furlough scheme. And if there are new skills that are needed, you need, under employment law, to give that opportunity to the staff that are furloughed currently, in order to, keep their job and work with new business, basically, or new ways of working. So I hope that's helped. I'm not sure. We've got James, time for one more. We've got James from Facebook, who says, if I have already received a bounce back loan, can I increase or top up my existing loan? So obviously the bounce back loan, you can only receive once from one bank, and you can't have the business interruption loan alongside this. You can have one or the other. But if you have an existing loan with your bank, obviously you can see if they will give you extra money. But bounce back loan, as far as I'm aware, once you've applied for it and you've requested, say, £25,000, that is all that you're going to get, unfortunately, all in one go. But at least you have that 1 year time to really have a look at whether you need it or not, because you don't need to repay anything for a whole year. But yeah, unfortunately, that is it from me. If you have any questions, please do get in touch with QuickBooks support team or myself. I'm available on all social media channels, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Please do keep an eye out on our website as well, under the news section, which is updated regularly as and when information is released. And we also have our own app, which has its dedicated COVID-19 section, which is super informative and helpful. You can download that under our services, under the major accounts tab, and you'll have links for Apple Store and Google Play Store. So coming up on Ask the Expert on Monday is Aaron Patrick, who is a chartered accountant and is head of accounts at Bofix. Aaron is a regular host of Ask the Expert, who always has great advice to your questions. Make sure to tune in. I know I will be. A reminder, if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. That's it from me. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great weekend.